And we're going live.
Great.
Good morning, Barbara. How are you this morning?
Very well. Thank you, Ron. How are you this morning?
Great. And, it's such a beautiful day. And, at the end of the day, we just have to get up, have your gratitude, and be focused. And,
Exactly.
and today we're on chapter 9 of your book, Yes, Yes, You. And chapter 9 is Basics Make It Work. So tell us, what do you mean by basics makes it work in chapter 9, Barbara?
Fantastic. So the basics of this little book now, chapter 9, are sleep, nutrition, and relaxation. And for me, Ron, sleep is 7.5 hours, 1.5 hour cycles for the download of the day and for the repair of the body. So sleep is not something that we should take lightly. It's a process that works in our system, that works for our betterment. Sleep is not a nice to have, sleep is a necessity, as is nutrition. And when I speak about nutrition, Ron, I speak about clean food. I speak about food that fuels the body. Food is not just a tummy filler. Food is your health. Food is the quality of the way you think. Food is brain power. Oh, and relaxation. Here's a big one. I have been advocating for decades that corporate and companies should include relaxation in a work day. And I was noticing on social media this week how the Chinese have incorporated at a worker's desk a chair that actually folds down into a couch for at desk rest. Relaxation is not a luxury. Relaxation helps the brain switch from one task into another task. Relaxation helps download the fullness of the previous sessions of work so that the reset of the brain can actually help into the next session of work.
And Barbara, it's quite interesting what you just mentioned there. And I was watching the movie called Google, and it's quite funny of these two guys, and I think Owen Wilson, I can't remember who the other character is. They're looking for a job and they decide to go work for Google. But they've got these pods. If you feel tired, you can go lie in the pod and listen to this music, or you can go sit outside because of working so much on computers and stuff like that. All you do is focus. And what is quite important, what you just mentioned there, is it's like a bunch of keys. You walk into their house, you put up your keys down, and you look and says, where did I put my keys? But the keys are there where you put it, but you can't see it because your mind is so busy.
Mm.
I think this is where relaxation comes in, because if you start relaxing, it says, oh, that's where I put it down. You know, the other point is, it's one of the things I battle with is sleep. You know, I, I wake up every morning at 3 o'clock. Doesn't matter if I go to bed at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. It's that 3 o'clock is that internal clock. I have to stand up, walk around, and go sleep for another 3 hours because it takes me half an hour because my brain is too active. And I think because we don't relax during the day, it doesn't put your brain into a relaxed mode. What is your opinion on that?
Absolutely, I agree with you. We're overtired. So by the time we go to bed, we sleep. Either we can't go to sleep or we sleep just enough to get past the tired bit. We're too stimulated. Ron, social media, AI, global expansion, highly intensive stimuli have all an impact on the brain. We are seeing so much information. We are seeing so much um, conversation and nonsense, even going on all around us, that we have the need to train ourselves into a better sleep patterning. And that 90 minutes cycle that I spoke about earlier that is a training process. You have to train the brain for the 90-minute cycles. And when the brain understands that you're serious about your sleep, that you are conscious about your sleep, that your sleep is your friend, your brain will help you find the answer, because that's the function of the brain. The brain's function is to help us find our answers. The thing is, we're not asking the right questions. We're not asking or developing ourselves to ask the right questions.
So, Barbara, what is your suggestion that listeners can start improving these little basic steps on your sleep, your nutrition, your relaxation, which is so crucial to your life? What would you suggest a person can do?
Well, to go back to what I've just said about the sleep, so we can add to that sleep idea by making sleep a conscious decision at a particular time. Overtiredness stops sleep. Going to bed prior to overtiredness is optimal. Consciously choose a cutoff time for the day. For myself, that is 9:30 p.m. After that, I just willowed. I just weep down. I can't keep up. I'm not a night person. I'm a morning person. So anything beyond me being comfortable in my body just makes me overtired, anxious, exhausted. Conscious timekeeping of sleep to bed is vital. Setting up the environment in the bedroom for sleeping is vital, i.e., no television in the bedroom. I even go so far and no books in the bedroom. The concept of the bedroom is sleep, sex and sleep, sure, but the concept is to sleep. The whole idea of setting up a safe space, a place where you can prepare yourself for a good night's sleep, where you know that the doors are locked if they need to be locked, that the cell phone is not in your bedroom, that the computer is switched off, that you've set yourself consciously for a good night's sleep. That for me is vital. Once, especially, here's something I've noticed being a single woman. If I am worried about my security or about things that I have not done, that will stop me from sleeping. I need to get up and make sure the door is locked. I need to have a nighttime journal. I keep a journal in case my brain battles to switch off. And I write down what's in my brain so that I know that in the morning there's a place that I can go and find what it was that my brain was still telling me about the day. It works fantastically. It's out of the brain, it's in the book, and by the time your head hits the pillow, you actually want to sleep because you've freed up the worries. As for nourishment,
But Barbara, just a quick one on
yeah,
that.
yeah,
What I've worked what works for me, and sometimes I'm too hyperactive because this brain of mine is all over the show. And what I figured out is sometimes I will listen to meditation music as well as a bit of breathing. Do you think that's also a good thing where people are battling, is just to have some form of breathing exercise just to clear the lungs and clear the brain with oxygen?
Ron, the activity in the brain needs to be stilled. So yes, for some people, meditation works. Some people take meditation music on in the bedroom. For me, I don't agree with that because one, it's a cell phone, and you've got the blue rays, and you've got the energy of the cell phone, and then you've got to now switch off the phone because the meditation is finished. So that now, for me, is contradictory. We have to find techniques that actually work for us. We need to set up a place of the smarts, if you will, sleep smarts. My mother had a very bad sleep hygiene, very bad. Bottom line of that was she wasn't prepared to make changes. It takes changes. If we do not have the results that we want, then change is required. But it takes a decision to make a change and then to follow through with that decision and do the changes over a period of time so that you can monitor whether this process has or has not worked for you. Possibly it needs tweaking, possibly it just needs a little redefine. But if you don't make a different behavior, you don't get a different result.
Thanks, Barbara. For the listeners, what's the connection between physical basics and life performance?
So the physical basics first, and then the life performance. Again, the physical action, the physical decision, and then the result. The setting the idea in your mind that 9:30 is bedtime or whatever suits you. The basic physical action and then the result. So, it was Maslow who said that we had to look after ourselves first. He primed us into action, and then new behaviors result in new results. Ron, it's like a car. If we do not put fuel into the motor, if we do not give it oil, if we do not give it water, that car doesn't move. Cars need tires, and cars need air in tires. No action equal no performance. So yes, there's certainly a connection between the physical basics and life performance.
I find it quite interesting what you just mentioned, which brings me to another point of sleep. We always got an alarm clock when we want to wake up, but we haven't got an alarm clock when we want to go to bed.
Exactly, Ron. And if you need an alarm clock to go to bed to remind you, then go to bed on an alarm if that's the necessity. In my own case, I have so set my sleep pattern. I have trained my sleep pattern for the 9:30, the 90 minutes, the journaling if need be, to wake refreshed, Ron. It is not about the going to sleep unconsciously. It's about going to sleep with the intention of rising, feeling refreshed. I mean, you said you wake up at 3. If you're waking up at 3, for me, that's a good thing because I'm a morning person. But if you're waking up at 3 and you're a night person and you're going to bed at 11 or 12 o'clock, then 3 o'clock doesn't work. The concept is you got to know yourself first. First of all, who am I? What works for me and what doesn't? What doesn't work for me needs to be addressed.
So coming to the point of how does rest help you with your creativity and your focus?
Rest is the downloading. Rest is the repair. Rest is the recovery. Rest is a relaxed mind equals creativity, focus, clarity, motivation. For me, that's a law of life. Ron, my brain gets so tired that I feel like it's burning. That indication says to me, not even with a hesitation or an excuse, bed. We don't understand ourselves anymore. We are not listening to our bodies anymore. We are ignoring what is fundamental to our being because somebody else has a plan. It's either our boss who says, no, you need to not work 8 hours a day, but 12 or 14 or 16. Or it's a spouse who says, but you don't spend any time with me. Let's have a midnight snack, for goodness sake, whatever. The point is, if we do not, first of all, communicate with ourselves as to what our self needs, then we're not going to give ourselves what our self needs. Body exhaustion, mental burnout, that creates chaos. That creates all sorts of negativity and frustration. I would go so far and say, put on that alarm to go to bed. Understanding yourself. Spouse doesn't necessarily have the same kind of sleep needs or sleep patternings. Too often in relationships, one is a morning person, one is a night person. And that already causes a conflict. Communication creates a middle ground and a respectfulness towards each other's way and need of sleeping. You know, this brings me to a beautiful story of a man, a doctor, who had 5 children, who has 5 children. He still has 5 children. And his whole concept with his 5 children was, you do not tell a person when to go to bed. Each person has a unique clock. He would allow his children to sleep any time of the day or night that suited them best, as long as they were able to be in a family situation, in a communicative, kind relationship with each other. That was his only criteria. He wanted people to feel relaxed in the mornings so that relationships could be built. I think that's a great approach.
Barbara, it's such a lovely story. And I just want to go back, I think it was 3 weeks ago when we had a problem with the intermittence with Zoom and the hamster wheel was running. And it's like your computer. We first have to clean up the hard drive. We have to remove all the stuff that's interfering with the memory. And sometimes we have to go add a bit of more memory just to increase the intermittence. And sometimes, and this is what your brain is. Your brain is a massive computer. And sometimes your memory is full. And the computer says, I can't go wrong. Go wrong. Go wrong. You know?
And that's exactly what it does, right? And
Yep.
that's the importance, Ron, of self-development. Because if we do not know that the computer needs to be released of some of its junk, old memories, old programming, old conditioning, it just rechurns it, just like the task manager on the computer. No, we have to manage it. We have to find ways, techniques, tools, i.e. my book, 10 tools to get on with your life, 10 tools to clear the computer of the brain, the emotions of the heart, etc. Because we're running so fast these days, and more and more and more is expected of us. This is the first starting point, ourselves. Without it, we burn out.
And what are the common mistakes people make, Barbara?
Well, firstly, from the perspective of sleep, I believe people don't get enough. I believe that the minimum amount of sleep is 7.5 hours. Yes, I can do 6 hours for short periods of time. I'm talking about up to 3 months. If I'm in a project, if I've got something that needs a deadline, I can do 6 hours and I can function on 6 hours, but I set myself up for that 6 hour change in my brain. My brain won't just accept it. I have to talk to myself and set myself up for that. So, first of all, we don't get enough sleep generally. I would say to you, bad quality of sleep, bad environment of sleep. Never go to bed on an argument, for instance. Alcohol is a problem for sleep. Smoking is a problem for sleep. We're overstimulated. Our blue light devices are causing havoc with our brains, with our melatonin, with our cycles. We are not getting quality, quantity of sleep. We're not re-engaging with the adjustment of what needs to happen now in this life cycle.
Barbara,
As for, do you want to say something?
yeah, it just reminds me, I was watching a podcast with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and they asked how many, how long do you sleep for? He says, I'll sleep for 6 hours, I'll work out for 6 hours, I'll spend family with 6 hours, and I've got my business for 6 hours. He says, why don't you sleep for 8 hours? I says, because people need to sleep faster. So,
You see, he's worked a system that works for him. I've heard of many very creative minds, musicians. Beethoven, in fact, used to do a break. His sleep process was 4 hours, work for 6, sleep for 4. He had a rhythm that worked for him. He was so creative and so productive. He had worked out for himself what his self needed. And it goes back to that story of the man with 5 children. Sleep when you need to sleep so that you're refreshed and able to create. It doesn't matter if we don't all sleep at the same time.
uh,
Or maybe it does. Maybe it does. And that again goes back to communication and respect for each other.
100%. And I was listening to a person speaking about Winston Churchill having that 20 minutes power naps.
Oh, yeah.
And, of being in such a high intense environment, sometimes you just take that break, 20 minutes. And I found myself having a 20-minute power nap, you've refreshed and go forward and achieve what you want to achieve. And which brings me to the point is, what are the small changes people can do to change their lives over time, applying these rules that you've got in your book, Barbara?
Well, again, first of all, they're not rules. They're stepping stones for us to become conscious of ourselves. I'm non-prescriptive. The book is the guidance for ourselves to ask ourselves what works for ourselves. There are some ideas, there are some guidelines. Very often, Ron, we get so bundled in the negativity that we can't even start to think positively, creatively, or from the perspective of action. We end up in this turmoil that creates madness and chaos. So the thing is, Ron, everything compounds, be it in the negative or be it in the positive. The negative will decide a downward direction, and a positive will decide a positive direction. Here's the irony of that, Ron. They both take as much energy to create. So in my case, from that perspective of change management, I have decided that if I want something to improve, for me, the best way forward is to write it down, take action, and do the action. I had a situation this morning right here in my little book, my little notebook. I wrote down, what is the flux? What is the chaos? What can I decide on? What can I do? Can I start doing it already this morning? And I did. And did it make me feel better? Yes, it made me feel better. Why? Because then I can take control of what I can take control of. What I can't take control of, I have to bless it and surrender. But in the meantime, I can do what I can do. And if we just work on the principle of 1% improvement per day over a year, that's 365%. It's worth the effort.
And Barbara, you're 100% correct. And I say, just get started. I mean, sometimes it's out of your control. As an example, the other morning, I had to get to an appointment and not realizing there's 5 roads that closed due to roadworks.
Ooh.
But I'm saying, it used to take 10 minutes, it took 45 minutes. It's out of your control.
Yeah.
You cannot stress about it. You might lose that interview, you might lose this. That's out of your control. Just get on the phone and do it again. Just say, I apologize. And sometimes the person who's going to the same interview, who could be the boss, might be behind you, but you just give up. It reminds me of a story, which is a true story, of a guy on his bicycle going for the interview. And there's an old man who broke down, his tires flat, and he stopped and he changed the tire and he ran late for the appointment. And when he got to the interview, it was the same person whose car broke down.
Oh.
He got the job, not because he was late, but because he took his time out of helping out. Even he rocked up with dirty clothes, he showed up. And sometimes we just have to show up. Which brings me to the point as a final question. What is the main message for listeners about these fundamentals?
To take care of self first, because everything else will follow from that. Everything else will flow from that. When we feel nurtured and safe and looked after by ourselves first, then we are able to muster the energy, the care for not only what needs to happen, but also for those that we need to service, i.e. our families, our clients, etc. Because good self-care, Ron, gives us preparedness. We can work into good performance. We have a willingness then to show up, to be creative, to engage, to contribute, to have a level of performance, because we come from a place first of self-care. We do not hold resentment and regret and annoyance and frustration when we come from a place first of self-care. Self-care motivates us, inspires us, energizes us to give our best. That's what this is all about. Our basics of sleep and nourishment and relaxation is about that we show up as our best. As they say, go big or go home, right? If you're not big on self-development, if you're not big on self-care, you've got nothing to offer.
And Barbara, I just want to give a bit of a testimonial. Since I've been working with you, when I started the business, I always put other people first, but never self. Since the last 12, 15 years, working with you by using understanding self, growing self, becoming self, I started to learn more because of the 8 dimensions of life which you speak about. It helps a person to get that sleep, to get that relaxation, to take care of self and looking at the roadmap. And I want to finish off with this quote from Napoleon Hill. Plan your work and work your plan. And in that plan is your sleep, is your relaxation, is your nutrition. So Barbara, on that note, thanks for another exciting podcast. Next week is our final chapter. Please tune in. Everything will be in the description of Facebook as well as on YouTube. Have a wonderful day, Barbara.
Thank you. Bye-bye, Ron. Bye-bye, listeners.